Truly, we are living some days, my people are not living right. We are not straight. Yeah, you ain't lying about that. You guys ready? Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi wahdahu. والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تمسك بسنته إلى يوم الدين وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد. As we continue this day, Wednesday, August the 17th, 2022, with a time now is currently 7:13 p.m. on this evening of Wednesday, which agrees on the Tariq al-Hijri, on the Islamic date, or is currently the 19th of Muharram, the year 1444, the year 1444, after the migration of our Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. As we continue in this tremendous treatise entitled Fataawa al-Hamawiyyah al-Kubra by the great Imam Abu Abbas Taqiyuddin Ahmad ibn Abdul Halim ibn Abdul Salam ibn Taymiyyah al-Harrani al-Dimashqi al-Numayri, who died 728 after the migration of our Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. He brought the statement, or rather we continue by clarifying that Shaykh al-Islam, after he established what was the correct belief in which the Muslims were upon, meaning the Muslims of first, who are they? They are the message of Allah, the companions, those who followed them with perfection. One wants to know what gave the honor of the Muslims to the point where Allah allowed the Muslims to dominate and be victorious, where they were distinguishing disbelief and polytheism and eradicating it and decimating it in all of its aspects, until the Muslims became superior and the light of Tawheed and Sunnah became superior and dominant over everything else. What was that affair that they were upon? This is what Shaykh al-Islam was mentioning here. So the Muslims want to know what was the reason for why their honor and respect and reverence from their enemies will be restored. Is based upon them holding on to what is correct, and that deviating from those matters will be a result of their demise. It will be a result of their destruction. It will be a result of them becoming dominated after they the ones who were dominating. So those affairs, like we said, brothers and sisters, is what Shaykh al-Islam mentioned here. And then he brings his evidence to support this position and this creed that he was calling the people to return back to. Not to bring something new or newly introduced to the people, something that was not known. Rather, he was calling them to return back to something that might have been hidden from some, but was known with others. But the point of the matter is calling the Muslims to return back to that, so the honor will be restored to the Muslims and to the people of the truth. And that is not the best of merits and the best of outcomes. The best of outcomes is that they die in a sound state. That's the greatest of all outcomes. One, not just to have worldly benefits, that they attain status or superiority in the earth. That's not the greatest of merits. The greatest of merits is that one died in a sound state. A state that's pleasing to Allah Ta'ala. And a state that on the day of resurrection, that their final abode or their eternal abode will be bliss. And the greatest of all bliss is looking at Allah. As you'll find, as we'll talk about in this lesson, how we will refute the different ambiguities based upon what I just said. That the greatest of all blessings is not just enter in paradise, and that's it. As you'll find that Ibn al-Qayyim put in this book called Had al-Arwah ila Bilad al-Afrah, that he said that the greatest of all blessings when the people enter bliss is to look at Allah and they will forget everything they in of blessing. Everything they're in of, everything they will be in of enjoyment, delight. And we read the narrations of how paradise will be, of everlasting bliss, of the physical. Imagine that they will attain an affair that will surpass all pleasures physically. And Ibn al-Qayyim mentions, it says that looking at Allah will make them forget of everything they're in of bliss and pleasure. And that the greatest of all ni'mah is the affair that the people of bid'ah deny. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? The greatest of all ni'mah, the greatest of all bliss and pleasure, even when the inhabitants of paradise enter it. Ibn al-Qayyim says when Allah removes the veil, removes the hijab, He says, and the people look at their Lord to what He, subhanahu wa ta'ala, when they look at Him, they will forget everything they're in of bliss. Because the affair of looking at Allah in paradise brings the greatest of all happiness was the happiness of the heart. Whereas the other affairs of paradise are physical pleasures. Of affairs of never sleeping, never becoming sick, never aging, never having affairs of hunger, and the type of affairs and when they eat will not because they have the need to eat. It will just be all pleasure. As you'll find it in Qayyim, it'll just be what? Na'im mutlaq. Not because they need to eat, because they're hungry, because they're suffering from type of deprivation in the affairs of their nutrients of their bodies. He said no. The affairs of paradise is absolute bliss. Of food, eating, drinking, everything. It's not because of need. Those affairs are changed in paradise. All those elements and factors are completely removed. So what he was saying here, so imagine all those affairs, never needing to sleep ever again. Never needing to eat out of the need to eat. Pleasure of even sexual, there will be sexual bliss in paradise, of course. If everybody on the side there. Even those affairs will be there. All those matters, all that entertainment of drinking and eating, and everything they're in of bliss, they'll forget when they look at Allah. All of that will be forgotten when they look at Allah, meaning the greatest of all bliss that will what? Dominate all those other things. Will be looking at Allah to be with that. That affair, hold on to it because that's the affair that the people deny. That's what we're going to speak about today. The greatest of all na'im. There's no na'im, no bliss above that bliss, and the people bid'ah deny it. Right. So notice that Ibn al-Majishun that he goes on to say, and we talked about how Ibn al-Majishun, I'm sorry, here it is. We were talking about the great companions of Al-Imam Malik, meaning the greatest of scholars at the time of the Imam Malik, rahimahullah, in Al-Madinah. We said they were three. We said that number one, they were the great Imam Abdul Aziz ibn Abdullah ibn Abi Salama ibn al-Majishun. The great Imam who was from the closest of the scholars of Medina during the time of Imam Malik in Al-Madinah. The Prophet ﷺ city was three. And the head of them was the great Imam Malik ibn Anas al-Usbu'i, and this individual who Shaykh al-Islam mentioned, who's who? Abdul Aziz ibn Abdullah ibn Abi Salama ibn al-Majishun, was also from Al-Madinah. He's from the great scholars of Al-Madinah at the time of Imam Malik, and also Ibn Abi Dhib. Ibn Abi Dhib. This is what we mentioned last class, right everyone? Fine. So we finished the statement of Ibn al-Majishun. Alhamdulillah, when I was in Kulliyat al-Hadith, we're very familiar with Ibn al-Majishun. His name will come up. For those who study fiqh and go to the levels of really studying it in depth, his name will pop up. The great Imam, Ibn al-Majishun, you'll find they use him usually from the Madhab al-Imam Malik or Madhab al-Maliki. Why? Because he was from the close companions of who? Imam Malik. So Imam Malik will be mentioned, you'll find Ibn Abi Dhib, and also who? Ibn al-Majishun. You'll find in his name that it occurs, especially for those who study the affairs and science of jurisprudence in depth. His name will constantly come up. Fine. So let's continue. Ibn Majishun, he said, or rather this is the statement of Shaykh al-Islam. He says, "I'raf, rahimakallah, ghanaka Allah, an takallufi sifati ma lam yasif al-Rabb min nafsihi bi'ajzika an ma'rifati qadri ma wusifa minha." So let's go slowly and dissecting this statement. So this is the new statement of today. He said, "No, may Allah have mercy on you. Allah has made you free. غناك عن تكلف صفة ما لم يصف الرب من نفسه." Allah has freed you from the burden and the duty of characteristics of what He did not describe Himself with. We'll explain this in a minute. Due to your incapability of knowing the level of what it's been described of. We're going to explain this in a minute. Don't worry. Let's keep in context what Ibn Majishun said last lesson. What did he say last lesson? In affairs that's pertaining to what? That you will not be able to understand a characteristic of something. You will never be able to fathom or ever be able to attain the true reality of something that has no beginning. So if you cannot contemplate, now this is what Ibn Majishun said we said last class. What did we say? He said last class, or what we mentioned last class, he says, you only can attain how something is if, well, number one, it didn't exist, then it came into existence. Then you investigate of how it is. Allah Ta'ala is not like that. Allah Ta'ala is what? Had no beginning. And He has no ending. So you can't ask how something that doesn't have no beginning, how it is. Because it's way beyond your comprehension. Way beyond your comprehension to find a reality or attain the true reality is something that has no beginning. You can't ask how it is because it's way beyond your comprehension. Do you know anything from the creation that doesn't have a beginning? Had no beginning. And it has no ending. And its knowledge was not preceded by ignorance. Can your mind understand that? Can your mind comprehend the deity who's perfect in knowledge that His knowledge is not preceded by ignorance? Can your mind understand it? No, it can't. So we mentioned this last class, now we're going on to the new one. The new benefit of the day. So he says, "I'raf rahimakallah." He says, have knowledge. And this statement, write it down, is by Ibn Majishun. It's not Shaykh al-Islam. This is a continuation of the statement of the great Imam Ibn Majishun. He's given this to every individual who's trying to aspire towards being upright and having the proper knowledge about Allah. So listen to the dua he makes. He says, have knowledge, may Allah have mercy on you. For every reader and for anyone listening. I'raf. Now listen to what he says. Verily you've been set free from the burden أن تتكلف بأن تأتي بصفة ما لم يصف الرب من نفسه من عند نفسك. The meaning of this statement is, we'll go slow. You've been set free from the burden of describing Allah with any characteristic He did not describe Himself with. Is that not clear or not clear? You've been set free and not given the burden of saying about Allah or bringing any characteristic about Allah or what He did not describe Himself with. Is it not clear? Is it clear? Who's the one that did that? Who took on that burden, everyone? The philosophers did. تكلفت الفلاسفة. How did the philosophers take on that burden? They describe Allah by the intellect. They describe Allah by using what? The mind. By Allah Ta'ala being called Al-Illah. Illatul Wujud. Or Al-Aql Al-Fa'al. that he's the reason of existence. This is the type of terms they use. وَالْعَقْلَ الْفَعَالِ, the ultimate mind that constantly does. Or the different types of terminologies that they use, their philosophical terms that they use instead of using the word Allah. They use other terms, such as al-illat al-fa'ila, the thing that does, or the reason for the existence. These type of istilahat, falsafiyah. Anyway, so that's the first statement of Ibn al-Majishun. Is that clear? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala set the human being free, and those who follow proper guidance by burdening yourselves with affairs or describing Allah with a characteristic that He did not describe Himself with. That's number one. Number two, this is what Ibn al-Majishun says. اعرف ذلك بعجزك عن معرفة قدر ما وصف منها. Al-Murad al-Qadr, he says, now listen to the next statement. By your incapability of having knowledge of Qadr. Here, what is the meaning of Qadr in this context? The meaning of Qadr in this context here is not the divine decree and destiny. No. The meaning of Qadr here in this context is the kayfiyah, the haqiqah, and the kun. How Allah's characteristics are, the true reality of they are, and how they are. That's what he's talking about here in this context. Ooh. It's still on? Oh, fuck, I accidentally pressed on it. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? He says, now listen to what Ibn al-Majishun says. Due to your incapability of having the knowledge of how that characteristic is being described. I'm going to explain it. إِنَّكَ عَاجِزٌ, verily, O human beings, you are incapable of attaining the true knowledge of how Allah and the true reality of Allah's characteristics, of what He described Himself with. Is it clear, everyone? Verily, we believe in it. We submit to it. We know its meaning. However, you do not know its reality. You don't know how it is, and the true reality of how it is. You don't know that. Nor did Allah burden you with knowing that affair. Is it clear or is it not clear what I'm saying? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not burden the human beings of knowing how He hears everything simultaneously in heavens and earth. Because Allah's infinite knowledge knows that the human beings' minds are what? Incapable. So, he goes on to say, Ibn al-Majishun, بِعَجْزِكَ عَنْ مَعْرِفَةِ قَدَرِ يعني كيفية ما وصف منها. By your incapability of having knowledge of the true reality of how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described of these great characteristics. Meaning, in simple words, you believe in it, you submit to it. We do not believe in blind faith like the Christians. Our faith is faith of submission. Submission, affirmation, and building our belief upon sound proofs, evidences, and facts. Not emotions, not your opinions, nor how you feel. Is it clear or not clear? Fine. You do not know the true reality of how these characteristics are. Why? إذا كنت عاجز عن إدراك حقيقة سمعه وبصره وحقيقة كنه ومجيئه ونزوله واتيانه ما الذي جعلك تتكلف بأن تصفه من عند نفسك وأنت عاجز عن كنه ما وصف به نفسه. Just to sum it up, if you cannot, nor did Allah burden you with knowing the true reality of how His characteristics are, and the depth and the true nature of how they are, If you're incapable of attaining the true reality of how Allah hears everything, sees everything, likewise you are incapable, if you're not able to understand or fathom or attain the reality of those characteristics, the reality of how He will come on the day of resurrection, and the descension, when He descends in third part of every night, and Him coming on the day of resurrection, what is to think that you will now take on the burden of now so-called now describing Allah with something from your own opinion and your own self? Even though you're at the same time you are incapable of attaining the true reality of what He has affirmed for Himself. So basically this is a refutation against the philosophers. O philosophers, you took on a burden that Allah didn't burden you with. You tried to now attain the reality of these affairs by using your mind. And as a result of it, you destroyed yourself. Where Allah has freed every human being from these affairs. To stop at their what? Boundary. In everything. Because the senses and the faculties of the human being is bounded. You only can see to a certain distance, stops. You only can hear to a certain distance, then what? Doesn't go beyond that. Same thing, Allah has also bounded what, everyone? The human mind. It goes to a certain ability, stops. That's it. And Allah did not burden you with something that is beyond your comprehension. Allah has revealed enough for the human being of what they need to take on as daily duties that will suffice them. And Allah did not burden them with affairs that's way beyond their comprehension. As a result of it, if they was to go look for it, it would be a means and a reason for their destruction. And for their confusion. And for their doubt. Is it clear, everyone? Fine. I'll say it one more time, because we almost finished. Ibn al-Majishud, he goes on to say, no, and we'll read the full statement again. Allah has freed you, غناك عن تكلف صفة ما لم يصف الرب من نفسه. Allah has freed you, sufficed you from the burden of the characteristic, meaning of affirming for Allah what He did not describe Himself with. He gave you everything you need. He revealed to you He has these characteristics. He doesn't have certain characteristics. What characteristics are they that He did negate from Himself? Characteristics of imperfection, such as death, such as having children, such as eating, drinking, sleeping, forgetfulness, heedlessness. Allah negated those affairs from them. Why? Because it does not befit the Creator of the heavens and the earth to have those deficiencies. And from those deficiencies is children. Children is a need to continue your lineage, to continue your family, and to continue what? Continue to multiply the human beings in the earth. That's a need, that's a deficiency. That's why Allah doesn't have that. Allah does not have a female partner, a female companion, nor does He have a need for any of these affairs. These are needs that makes the human being complete, not the Creator of the heavens and earth. So, Allah did not burden you with you describing Him with a characteristic He did not describe Himself with. Everything for the human beings to know about their Lord, He gave it to us. For their Lord, or for our Lord, then He what? Gave it to us. Allah told us what to affirm about Him, and He told us what to negate, which is imperfections and characteristics of imperfection. That's obligatory for us to what? Negate. Allah did not burden us also with the affair of knowing how these matters are, how Allah descends, how He ascends, how He hears everything at the same time, how He sees everything at the same time, everything. Allah didn't burden us to know how He does that. And if you can't comprehend how Allah hears everything and how He sees everything, you will never be able to attain the true reality of His other characteristics, such as dissension or ascension. And the greatest of all those characteristics is His essence. How He is Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, where He has no beginning and no ending. And your mind is way beyond your comprehension to fathom something that doesn't have a beginning or ending. Can you understand that? Is there anything that can create, can your mind begin to fathom something that can bring something from out of non-existence into existence? Can your mind even begin to comprehend that? Something that has no beginning nor ending. Can your mind understand that? Isn't that way beyond your comprehension? Do you know anything that doesn't have a beginning or ending other than Allah Ta'ala from the creation? No, you don't. So this is what he goes on to say in the last line again. He says, Ibn Majishun, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has freed you, O slave of Allah, from the burden of what? Bringing or ascribing to Allah a characteristic which He did not describe Himself with. Due to the fact of your incapability of truly attaining the reality and the true nature of how these characteristics are of Allah Ta'ala. Now listen to what he goes on to say. إذا لم تعرف قدر ما وصف فما تكلفك علم ما لم يصف. If Allah Ta'ala, He did not burden you with these matters, and if He did not burden you with trying to attain of how these characteristics are of what He described Himself with, إذا هذه من الحماق والتهور, meaning that if you try to now so-called attain how they are and figure it out and fathom it and attain its true reality, this is absolute foolishness. Due to the fact that Allah didn't burden you with it, and at the same time Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala affirms for us our incapability of attaining its true reality. So what do you think now you want to take on a burden in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala freed you from, nor can you even have the ability to attain the final ending result, which is to what? Know how it is. He says, تكلفك بعد ذلك بأن تصفه من عند نفسك إنما هو تهور منك وسوء أدب وافتياتات على الله ماذا تريد بذلك. Allah Ta'ala freed you from all these matters, these burdens and these duties. That you would describe Him from your own opinion or from your own self. And that this is just mere foolishness, bad mannerisms with Allah, and lying and fabricating upon Him. What do you mean and what do you want by these type of matters? That you are diving into something as a means for your destruction, your confusion, and your doubt. That's the ultimate result of you going beyond where Allah has set as a boundary for you not to transgress, nor for you to surpass. هل تستدل بذلك على شيء من طاعته؟ If Allah Ta'ala لا كلفت نفسك وتعمقت ووصفت الله من عند نفسك بما لم يصف به نفسه هل تريد بذلك أن تنال شيء من طاعته? Now listen to this. If you now want to use this as an evidence to now so-called waste your time, basically. You want to go on and now burden yourself in something that's not going to benefit you. Rather, it's going to be a means for your destruction, confusion, doubt, and other affairs and other atrocities that will come as a result of this. What is it going to increase you now by having so-called you taking on this burden? Is it going to do or bring along anything of submission or obedience? Is it going to now allow you to attain certain duties that you've been burdened to what carry out daily? هل تستدل بذلك على شيء من طاعته? He said, due to the fact that you now burden yourself and you went in depth to now you want to reach the affairs of trying to describe Allah from yourself, or what you feel, or what your own opinion, and what He did not describe Himself with. Look to happen with the Christians. Look to what happened with the people of the book. They started describing Allah with affairs where He did not what? Describe Himself with. When they fell into that, what came as a result of it? You'll find all types of contradictions, all types of confusions. If you was to now debate and sit with a Christian right now, they come with affairs that are the most what? The most stupid of affairs. That doesn't make absolutely any sense. And all they are is just saying, just to sum up, 1 + 1 equals 3 to them. That's all they basically said. You say to them, no, 1 plus 1 equals 2. No, the type of feelings that they bring, no, 1 plus 1, I know it makes sense that it makes 2. But you gotta feel inevitably it will be 3. You just have to believe it. I just have to believe 1 plus 1 equals 3. I know it doesn't make sense, but you just have to believe it. Regardless. You just have to believe it. I know it doesn't make sense. No, but 1 and 1 makes 2. I don't care what you say. No. So 1 plus 1 eventually will evolve into 3 or 4? Yes. Just not right now. No, 1 plus 1 will always make what? 2. That's why Allah refutes that in the Quran, that there's more than what? 1 deity. 1 plus 1 will always equal 2. There is no eventually it will revolve into 3. And that is the day Allah knows best. That's when America really has lost their minds. They probably will try to make people brainwashing them and thinking one day 1 plus 1 equals what? 3. And I would not be surprised if 1 million people will start to believe it. Because that's the days we live in. There will be people out there that will actually believe that nonsense. Because those are the type of days we're living in. May Allah protect us. طيب. So the last statement that Ibn al-Majishun says, إذا كلفت نفسك وتعمقت, if you burden yourself and you went in depth, went deep, so you now describe Allah from yourself, well, He did not describe Himself with. What do you want with that? Do you think that you're now going to attain something of His obedience by this? أو تزدجر به عن شيء من معصيته, or that you abstain from anything of His disobedience by this belief? العبد إنما يسعى في طاعة الله. Verily the servant of Allah sets out for the obedience of Allah in order to attain Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's what? His pleasure, being pleased with Him. And avoid His disobedience, so He can be saved from Allah's anger and His wrath. What do you want by burdening yourself with something Allah didn't burden you with? Not this nor that. All of these are affairs that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has described as matters that is bad mannerism with Allah and mere fabrications. Affairs that would be a means for every human being's destruction. If you surpass the boundaries that Allah has set, eventually it will be a means for your destruction. Because your brain, your senses, your faculties are all bounded. And nor did Allah set for any human being to surpass that boundary that He Himself is bounded for everyone. For those of the matters you'll find that Ibn al-Majishun didn't mention. We'll stop here, inshallah. I'll go over it one more time and just read it and just see if everyone understands it. Because it was just basically 3 sentences. And that's it. You want to read it? You read it. Hold on.
رحمه الله ونعط عن تكلف صفة ما لم يصف رب من نفسه بعجزك عن معرفة قدر ما وصف منها إذا لم تعرف قدر ما وصف فما تكلفك علم ما لم يصف. هل تستدل بذلك على شيء من طاعته أو تزدجر به عن شيء من معصيته.
Sounds a little bit complicated, but once you dissect it makes sense. So go for the first part again.
اعرف رحمك الله غناءك عن تكلف صفة ما لم يصف الرب من نفسه بعجزك.
Let's stop. You said in the first sentence, know for sure, may Allah have mercy upon you, Allah has set you free from the burden of what? You described for Allah of something He did not describe Himself with. Makes absolute sense. Did Allah give us that burden? No. For number one, He's saying here, you don't have to now describe Allah with affairs that the Christians and the people falsely fell into. Allah has set you free from that. How many from those from the people of the book have ascribed to Allah certain affairs that He did not describe Himself with? from those affairs is of having children. From those affairs, for example, that Allah of imperfections, or what the Jews fell into, by saying his hands are topped up. All those affairs Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has of the people of Sunnah, people who have embraced proper aqeedah and belief and guidance. Allah saved us from all that nonsense. Allah saved us from all these matters. Or saying that he's our Father. Our Father. This is a description of Allah where he did not describe himself with. Did Allah just say that he's our Father? And that he has awlad? Those are affairs that they ascribe to Allah where he did not what? He didn't describe himself with. So why take on that burden for you now, falling into line or making something up because of how you feel? Allah saved us from all that nonsense. How many people do we hear say this all day? Our Father, we're his children. He would never harm us. Oh yes, Allah will harm the human beings. Oh yes, he will. He's destroyed millions of people before. You understand? He would never harm us. We're all love. Everything's love. No, there's consequences if you don't do what you're supposed to do, just like with your parents. You don't fulfill certain duties, you face the what? Consequences. So those affairs, like we said, are what? Like we mentioned. He said, Allah did not give us the burden. Meaning, O people of Sunnah, who's allowed Aqeedah Salafiyya to truly penetrate your heart. Who truly is sincere. Who truly has let wahi creep in you to the point where you submitted fully to it. Allah saved you from this nonsense. Be grateful for it. To the point where he has given you, he has sufficed you and set you free from the duty of ascribing to him what he did not describe himself with. Meaning, Allah has given us pure revelation. Stick to it. These affairs, which are the greatest of all affairs, he has given you clear text and evidence for. Why? Because of his great importance. He has revealed, all you have to do is read almost all the ayat in the book of Allah. Doesn't it end up with a name from his name or attribute from his attributes? He's giving you what you need to know. Didn't burden you with number one by using your emotions to describe your Lord of what he did describe himself with. Number two, here it is right here. Due to the fact that Allah has absolute full knowledge that he knows you're incapable of attaining how those characteristics are, due to the fact that it's way beyond your comprehension. You understand, everyone? Your comprehension of you can imagine in your mind something that has no beginning, way beyond your comprehension. Something that has no ending, way beyond your comprehension. Someone who's a complete deity, that knowledge is not preceded by ignorance, way beyond your comprehension. Allah knows this about the human being. That's why he didn't burden us with these affairs. That's why he himself has for him, subhanahu wa ta'ala, has removed the burden from us, and he has given us what we needed, of what we describe him with, and what he tells us not to do in regards to attaining how they are and the true reality of they are. Is it clear or is it not clear? Now read the last statement.
إذا لم تعرف قدر ما وصف فما تكلفك علم ما لم يصف.
He says, if he did not what? I'm sorry, say it again. Oh, matter of fact, I have it right in front of me. I have it here too. No. He says, I'm sorry. إذا لم تعرف قدره, if you do not know how of the true reality of how he's described himself, you don't know how. He said, فَمَا تَكَلُّفُكَ عِلْمَ مَا لَمْ يَصِفْ. Why now try to take on the burden of the knowledge of what he did not describe? And we talked about the meaning of this in the last part of the lesson. He said, trying to attain those affairs, فَمَا تَكَلُّفُكَ عِلْمَ مَا لَمْ يَصِفْ. He said, for what is your burden of you taking on the duty of knowledge of what he did not make as a duty for you to do, of what he did describe. Meaning Allah Ta'ala from affairs of what the human being What it needs, He's given. And what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not reveal, nor did He burden us with, what He did not describe, then we stay away from it. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows the boundaries that's been set for the human being's mind and understanding. Is it clear, everyone? So let's read the next last part, then we'll stop again.
هل تستدل بذلك على شيء من طاعته أو تزدجر به عن شيء من معصيته.
Are you going to use that as an evidence for anything that will be utilized for you to earn Allah's pleasure? With this belief that you're seeking and this burden and duty that you're binding upon yourself, is it going to allow you now to attain anything of His pleasure if it's pertaining to affairs of obedience? Is it going to bring you closer to Allah? No, it isn't. Is it something that if you attain the knowledge of how it is, or trying to describe Allah to do with something He didn't describe Himself with, all these affairs that He's prohibited, is it going to now be a reason for you abstaining from His disobedience? And the answer is what? No, it isn't. Basically, to say, ultimately, it's just absolute what? Foolishness. Busy yourself with it. Leave it alone. Grasp and believe in those matters that Allah has given. Hold on to it. And those matters that Allah has not given you a burden, don't try to now burden yourself with it. Don't do it. Leave it alone. And you'll be successful. That's it. Is it clear, everyone? We'll stop here, inshallah. Any questions about the lesson? That was only 4 lines. 4 sentences. We'll do the next tomorrow. Any questions about the lesson? Is it clear, everyone? Not clear, not clear. You sure? No doubt if someone was to read this book without someone explaining, of course they'd be confused. With a couple of sentences that we mentioned. But if you listen and contemplate what the great Imam Ibn Majishun mentioned, he's right. He's basically giving you detail saying, oh human beings, don't try to attain, number one, your Lord has provided you with everything you need to know about Him, without you bringing anything of emotions, anything of feelings, to now describe ourselves with what He didn't describe Himself with. And you have clear evidences to look at what happened with the Christians and those before you. You see what they do. They describe Allah with affairs that what? That He didn't describe Himself with. So what did they do as a burden? They brought things from their emotions and from their minds of how they feel, and as a result of it, what? They describe Allah with what He is not what? Described with. In addition to that, those philosophers, same thing. They use their minds to burden themselves about certain affairs that Allah freed them from. And as a result of following their human minds and intellects, they fell into affairs that Allah did not describe Himself with, nor did He describe Himself with. They fell into it too. Well, majority of it is what He did describe Himself with, which is as far as what? Negating those names and attributes. So they fell into it also. So Ibn Majishun is saying, you'll be safe as long as you hold on to what? Revelation, and basically not to transgress in those matters that Allah did not burden you with, nor did He tell you to what? Do. Rather, those affairs are prohibited. That you now try to find how He is, how His essence is, how His characteristics are, how these affairs are truly. Leave it alone. Stop it where the Salaf stop, you'll be successful. And that's just the sum of the lesson. Is it clear, everyone? Yeah, stop it. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى اله وصحبه سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك اشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك